Okay, you all ready? I'd like to call this meeting of the Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority to order. Could we get a roll call of commissioners?
Chair Richter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Oliver,
Here.
Commissioner Goldblatt, here. Commissioner Osteen,
Here.
Commissioner Slaughter, Commissioner Talbert, Mayor Walker.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, let's have a moment of silence before we begin. Thank you. In terms of general announcements, I'll just announce the next meeting dates while everyone is here. And then if there's any other announcements from any of you or anyone up here, feel free to report them now. In terms of our next meeting dates, every Thursday at 2:30 at South First Street Community Center, the Redevelopment Committee meets. And that committee is working ahead on redevelopment, thinking about all sites, but most urgently the Crescent Halls and South First Street sites that are about to go into construction. There's a Resident Service Committee meeting March 12th, Thursday, 1 p.m. at Crescent Halls. Is that right? A maintenance meeting, we think, Tuesday.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, yes, it's good.
Westwood fixed everything.
March 17th, 6 p.m. at West Haven Community Center. We're going to have a board work session March 19th, which is a Thursday, which will likely be to look deeper into our budget before we need to pass it at the end of the month. And then our next board meeting will be March 23rd here at 6 p.m. Are there any announcements that anyone wants to share for the general public? Okay, so we'll move to public comments, followed by FAR comments.
Good evening. I'm Brandon Collins. I work for FAR, Public Housing Association of Residents, at 1000 Preston Avenue, Suite B. We've moved our suite from Suite C to Suite B. Same phone number, 434-984-3255, and you can find us at www.farcville.org. FAR is the resident council and resident advisory board for public housing residents in Charlottesville. I actually have written comment this evening that you can pass around, and I'll just quickly summarize a couple of things. First off, we're really excited about Mr. Popovich joining the team. His first day was somewhere around when you started last board meeting. It looks by his report like he has really hit the ground running, and we're really hoping that we can see tangible benefits felt by residents from his presence, and really excited that it looks like you've hired 2 additional maintenance staff, and that is super exciting. Would love to see if you can get from Mr. Popovich some information about the work order system. He had some ideas about how to make sure it was working correctly. His report sounds like he's had some success, so it'd be cool to learn some of the details about that. And we encourage you to ask him lots of questions. Safety, FAR has taken a deep dive look at safety and other matters starting weeks ago. Now that Mrs. Green is off of the safety committee, we're a little concerned that that committee is not going to move forward, so we really urge you to set a meeting time for that and prioritize scheduling that We'd like to get a lot more residents involved in the safety conversation moving forward for all the sites. Would like to remind you about the executive director search that we've requested, and you've mostly agreed to allowing us at least 2 formal seats on the committee. I know that committee is also looking at a restructuring potentially of how management all fits together at Housing Authority. We'd really like to be kept in the loop, and so please let us know of those meetings. Please let us know what we got to do to get those formal seats appointed or how you want to work that, but getting a little antsy that things might be going on without our involvement. And we do anticipate a really wide resident participation in that in terms of like job description creation, and then of course in the vetting and selection of a new executive director. Policies. So y'all are looking at admin plan changes for the Section 8 admin plan rather rapidly, I think at HUD's request. So we're trying to dive into that and help speed that along. It's a lot to undertake, but we're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to changes to the ACOP and having a really broad resident participation process in that as we look at policies that need to be changed, policies that we want to see changed for a future housing authority where it's not just buildings being redeveloped, but policies as well. We're concerned about what that means for LIHTC when the tax credit properties have their own separate rules. It was awesome y'all included us in a training on those rules, but it raised a whole lot of questions. So we really need to look for more details that we can go to residents and explain, here's the difference. We don't want you to feel a huge change, but there is a huge change in a number of things, particularly when residents go to recertify. They're going to feel the difference. There's things about verifications and things like that, the kinds of questions that are going to be asked. And then ultimately we're a little concerned about those residents who are earning higher incomes, and is there a potential that some residents might get screened out, which would be a devastating blow to the Residents' Bill of Rights for redevelopment, which we've all committed to. So I think that's a priority to look into and make sure that that's not going to happen, and what to do if there are families that are near that, and what we're all going to do. I've been told that income averaging will help with that, but we really need to know the details of that because that was not the focus of the training the other day, and I think we just got to really get all these details out there to residents. I think CRHA needs to do that work, FAR needs to do that work, and really just make it super clear so people don't get completely freaked out, and certainly so we don't lose anybody in this process. The wait list, we mentioned this a couple times. The wait list for Crescent Halls, there are people on there who are near the top of that who are not going to be housed anytime soon. And as far as I know, that list is still open for people to apply, and certainly anybody who's applying to public housing right now with the expectation of getting into Crescent Halls, it's going to be a really long time. It's just not fair to those folks to keep that wait list open. And I think some deep communication with those folks who are already on the wait list about the amount of time it's going to take for them to be housed would be really important. So I think that's it for now, and good luck. Have a great meeting.
Oh. Would anyone else like to come forward?
I did think there were 2 very interesting things that Brandon mentioned that I don't know if they're anywhere else on the agenda. I don't believe they are, but I think the LIHTC application process, there's some mystery there to me. I don't know who's most on top of that, but I think we need to kind of reverse engineer this thing and find out which current residents, what's the circumstance of a current resident who would be put in jeopardy by the system, and we've got to make sure we have an accommodation for them that is addressed in some other way. Because certainly we have no intent not to service all our existing residents, and we will have failed if everybody doesn't have good housing after this process. And then the timing of the wait list is also interesting. I think, you know, with Crescent Halls being renovated, and I know we've got a number of vacancies there now to allow the renovation to happen. I would think that wait list would be, you know, picked down when we have a new available building, and that would be the time to really kind of get in and do a deep dive and really analyze what kind of expectations are. But I would encourage FAR to think that the appropriate time is maybe after we have reassigned residences and figured out who our new tenants are going to be, whatever that is, 14 months from now or something. Thanks.
Do you mean because we're gonna have a mix of LIHTC and public housing, and
Well, not
there'll
as-
be some shift in?
I mean, that could
Who falls
certainly
under what
impact it, so
category?
we need to see that. But just knowing that we have 105 units now and 12 of them are vacant or something, you know, it seems like we'll be having somebody will occupy those units in short order. Do we foresee that there will be people there that will be put in this jeopardy that, well, we need a plan for that?
You talking about the issue that Mr. Collins mentioned about
Kind of the
overincome?
combination of those two issues is what Betsy brought.
Yeah, we have a bedrock commitment to make sure that everybody's able to return to public housing. That was in our LIHTC application.
Yep.
We've been front and center about that. And so
Right.
I think the point's well taken about just making sure we, you know, as we're implementing the LIHTC rules, that we make sure that all 100% of our residents
Yep.
are accommodated.
Thanks.
But can I ask Brandon or whomever would like to answer, getting back to you for the wait list, are you worried more about that it's going to be such a hold during construction because we have to keep moving the vacancies to move people through the building as the renovation happens?
Yes,
Okay, that's,
that's,
okay. So that's more that there's this probably 14-month hold for anyone
Yeah.
new.
Yeah.
Okay. I can speak to the executive director search, and then we've got another, in just a couple minutes, we'll have more information on that. I thought I had sent the job description around to FAR, but maybe I didn't because I haven't heard any response, so I will make sure my email was actually including everyone. I thought it did. If it didn't, I'll get it out again tomorrow or tonight. And I also wanted to hear from some of the CRHA staff just to see if they had any input, and I hadn't heard back from any of them yet. But otherwise, it's needs maybe that last look over, but it's sitting there pretty ready to go. I'll send it back to the board. The only thing I was trying to add was something about this moment in time versus 4 years ago. The job has changed with redevelopment already underway. Dave Norris working, the previous description talked about redevelopment as one of the big pieces of the job, which it still is, but there is, you know, it's already underway.
Yep.
There were a lot of pieces in there already about, you know, residents first, our mission, you know, some of that was pretty solid, but the current status of development needs to be in there. Anyway, but we'll talk more about that in a moment. We've got the city manager and city HR person here just to talk about how they're going to help us advertise and do some things.
Did you all receive it?
Did you receive?
I can't find it, maybe somebody in the organization might have.
Okay,
I have.
that's what I was, because I hadn't heard a word. Okay, so I'll recirculate it to you. And hopefully we can get the word out and some comment back on that in the next, hopefully this week, but we'll see how quickly we can work. We were hoping to have get the job posted by the end of the week. If we need to get a little bit more feedback, you know, if we need to go into next week, we can. But we'd like to get it out there soon. And we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. Let's see. Any other comments from commissioners? I think there was a safety meeting, and I'm not sure if that, I think that's included in the well, let me see, hold on a second. Yeah, I think that there's notes that'll come up later about that, so we can wait on that. All right, so we'll move to approval of minutes. And
Did we have December minutes that we had put off?
Yeah.
yes.
I don't think we re-received those. So today, I would just move approval of the meeting minutes for January 27th, 2020.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Minutes for January 27th approved. I'll note that. Yep, okay. And now we're going to just move one piece in the agenda up. The city manager is here and HR director. We had asked them if they could help us just with some of the nuts and bolts to get our search moving, since our staff is taking on a lot of extra work running the organization while we don't have an executive director. So they've come just to explain how they're helping if anyone has questions about the neutrality of their participation. You want to come on up?
Hello, everyone. I have with me Michelle Vineyard, our HR director, and as was mentioned or as requested, we are helping you in this search. And that's basically just, receiving the applications and forwarding it to the board, to you commissioners as a whole. And from that, we'll be posting it once we get the information back from the commissioners in terms of what you want to see in your new executive director. And we'll be waiting for that information. But all we're doing is just basically putting the announcement out, accepting the applications, then bringing it to your attention for your review. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
And Michelle has also sent us a list of other agencies throughout the state, and in terms of selecting a salary range, for looking at that, and willing to put the application, final touches on it once we make any changes to it. And then that's the extent of the city participation. The applications will be sent to the board, and then the process will go from there. And so the city will not be running the process.
If you wouldn't mind, if I added I just want to stress that we're serving as a collection site. We will not be doing screening of the application. We will merely collect the applications and forward them on to the designated person that you ask us to.
Yeah. We thought it would be helpful also in case we had in-house applicants that would go to the city rather than the CRHA office. And we're also, I don't think we've given it to you yet, but CRHA staff have a list of where affordable housing, nonprofits and housing authorities might look. And so we're going to give you that list too to advertise. Are there any questions just while we have members of FAR and other people here? Okay. We just wanted to be clear that they're not participating in reading the applications, but helping us just get the process moving, and we're grateful for that. Okay.
Thank
Yeah. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, so Claudette, Ms. Green. So Ms. Green and Ms. Glenn Matthews are homesick this evening. So we're just going to piece through what we can. Luckily, at our last work session, Ms. Green was able to walk us through some of the resolutions that she proposed from the Director of Housing. So we've already actually been able to talk about those with her. Some of them had been pushed from our last meeting because we didn't have enough information. Now we should. One of those is the memo of agreement, memo of understanding with Veep. And let me grab that. Veep is called the housing voucher, that's the V, an energy efficiency program. It comes from, or is coordinated with LEAP. And the idea is pretty much that LEAP would, I believe, offer 10 grants, if I remember correctly. I think it was up to 10 grants for land. Hold on a second.
For energy efficiency.
Yeah, so
Yes.
it would
What is
help landlords to
Landlords,
make their units more energy efficient in exchange for accepting Section 8 vouchers.
Thank you. The word landlords was escaping my brain. The hope is that we really need to get quality landlords into our voucher program. So it would be a great help to us to have this incentive. It also would help the residents pay less utilities. It seems like a win-win situation, and we did discuss it with Ms. Green at length at our work session. Does anyone have any questions about this?
I had a question at the session about the
Yeah.
time limits. Did you get an answer?
Oh,
on
right.
that?
No, I think it was 5 years. But what would happen after that?
So,
is the
yeah, the
question.
dollar amount and the time limits.
Yeah. So I did not hear the answers to that.
Yeah, it's 5.
And the dollar amounts. Dave, do you know, I'm sorry, you may not. I'm wondering if this is something we actually are voting on, or if it's just,
I believe so, yes.
okay, I thought so. It's just not in a resolution form, it's just we're voting on the minutes of understanding. Okay.
You're approving the MOU.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I mean, this isn't so much a question,
Yeah.
but I think like Mayor Walker, I have a concern about, I mean, if there's, I don't know if at this point there's room for negotiation, but I'm concerned about the time limit, because I think if a landlord gets a nicely renovated unit, they can agree to be part of this program for however long, and then flip it and make it a market rate unit, which will increase displacement in the neighborhoods that those units are in. It's just gonna drive up home prices, and so I think it's great to make units more energy efficient. It's great to get more Section 8 landlords into the program, and it's great to take that burden off of residents. But I think just we need to be cautious about the ways that these good intentions can actually potentially lead to more displacement rather than less.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing here it's a minimum 5-year commitment, so. And we can review the memo of understanding after 6 months. So I know that she was waiting for us to approve this, but it sounds like we might want to go back to Veep and ask about that 5-year
I'm curious if
minimum?
either Mayor Walker or Ms. Goldblatt, do you have a different time sort of window that you'd be more comfortable with, or?
I think what I would like to see, I mean, the time, so 5 years is, I think I'd like to see additional incentives if they stick with the program, so that you can say, you know, you can't force people to do something they don't want to do, but they have this 5-year commitment that they agree to, and that if they choose to renew, that there's some incentive for them to continue renewing, so that instead of immediately finding a market rate renter, they decide that they want to stay with the Section 8 program.
But I don't know if there's the funding for that, since it's a
Yeah.
grant program. So there would have to be a commitment to, because this is a city grant that they're using.
From the housing fund?
Yeah. So I don't think it's a way to ensure that.
Yeah, initially 10 landlords. Would you like to wait again, or should we vote on the intention of it and then work out?
I mean,
Try
I
to
think
work
if
that
we
out.
voted, it would be on
Yeah.
what's in front of, it wouldn't be
Yeah.
able
Yeah.
to change.
Okay.
I mean, another option is just extending it beyond 5 years and just, you know, say another.
See if we can get it for 7 or 10. Or
Yes, I think it would be
thought,
awesome.
you know, I really would like for Ms. Tolliver to be here on this conversation because she had a lot of really good questions that she asked about this. And I felt like, in our meeting that we discussed a lot of it, but I don't see it here and I don't hear it coming up. So I do have some concerns about, you know, how much money are we gonna allow each landlord to have to even do these fix-ups? And, you know, what are they gonna really look like? Because we deal with a lot of slumlords, I have to admit, and I don't wanna see our folks get tied up in that either
Yeah.
and then end up with, you know, spending a lot of money in these landlords and they're still not fixing up the places and preparing what they need to be done.
And I think it was 7,500, right? Was
Is
that
that-
the-
yeah, that's what the-
Each per
Per
house,
unit.
yeah. So it's not
A lot.
major renovations, it's just minor, probably like insulation, you know, stuff like that.
And that could be
Okay.
patchwork that's not, you know,
Yeah, I know.
And I think the idea is that they're new landlords to the program. This is a way to attract new landlords since we're low. I'm not saying that we know they'll be great, but to help us attract new landlords. Okay, so shall we delay this and we'll get Ms. Talbert in the loop?
And I think if, I would feel, 7 years, I mean, maybe it sounds
And
silly
see if
to
we
it,
can
but
get 7 years.
is, I feel a little bit better about that.
All right, so we could go back, or ask her to go back to Veep and see if that time frame can be extended. Okay. Let's see, next we have another review of memo of agreement with HCV Regional Portability Utility. Okay, so this one, Ms. Green let us know that this is a memorandum of agreement between adjacent counties so that our vouchers and their vouchers can move across boundaries, in which she was in, she said was once in effect and had sort of gone out of effect and just needed to be reapproved. Let me see if I can find.
Yeah, and it's being able to use them in other jurisdictions, but that the housing authority maintains ownership of them, so they wouldn't then go to the other authority just because they moved to that district.
Right.
And this is what we've been doing all along, right? They're just bringing,
Yeah.
updating it.
Yeah.
So,
That's correct.
yeah.
Okay, so can we vote on this memo? I think we just have to vote yes, that it can go forward and be signed. So, do we have a motion to vote? Do we need a motion to vote? I'm just saying, because it's not a resolution, I'm not sure. Or we can just say,
Just
All
move-
those in
Move to
favor?
approve the MOU.
okay. All right, do I have a motion to approve the MOU?
I move approval of the MOU for the Housing Choice Voucher Regional Portability Utilization.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so we now are wading through some other resolutions. And the next one, again, is one that Ms. Green had discussed with us. Let me give me a second to find it.
They're behind tab 4.
Yeah, behind tab 4, CRHA Resolution 1402. This is one where the utility allowance schedule, she had to, I forget how long it had been since these had been updated, but she had found updated utility numbers for, we have a list, and it's available, of all the different kind of construction types and various types of housing, and their average utility costs. I'm looking through to see if there's anything else we can tell you. Yeah, and so this will adopt the utility rates. And I'm trying to see when they had been last, it doesn't say when they had last been adopted. She had gotten the utility schedule set by the Virginia Housing Development Authority. So this will be used to calculate the utility allowances for CRHA. And I wish we had, wish she had told us when they had last been updated, but I know that it had been, it's something that we needed to look at.
So my question here was just the, what's the communication to the families?
Right.
And because it appears that it'll be a lower utility rate than normal, and just to make sure that people are prepared for that. And have a chance to process, you know, what that means in terms of their monthly output. And that was one thing that I, you know, did want to know, like the difference between the estimated difference between what they receive now versus what they will receive under the new calculations.
And I'm also looking through to see if when the change would actually take place. If we sign this, I'm not, you know, how much time there is before this actually changes in the lease agreement.
It would be retroactive to January 1st of this year.
Oh, thank you.
Which means the residents will start receiving excess utility bills right now. Is that?
My understanding is it would apply to utility bills from January 1 forward, but I'd have to check. I don't think it'd be fair to, you know, penalize anybody. I just have to figure out how that works. I'm not familiar with how this
So-
program.
Yeah, I don't think we should, especially since it would result in a lower amount.
Right.
If it was retro, then that could possibly mean that either the next check is even less than it would be, without, you know, giving people the time to plan for it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So should we hold on this one as well till we hear from Ms. Green about exactly the estimate? Even though we're gonna have to go back. Sorry, Ms.
I think the estimate, but also, as Mayor Walker was saying, how
How do we-
it's gonna be communicated to residents.
Okay. The next two, I believe, are related to redevelopment, authorizing the participation of CRHA in the renovation and development of Crescent Halls Apartments, and then one for South First Street. And Dave, is this under CRHA because
CRHA
We're
is the, CRHA is the entity that these particular resolutions apply to, and there's nothing new in these resolutions. It's basically our attorneys have advised us to basically consolidate various commitments that CRHA has made into one document for each project. But it basically talks about the kind of development structure. We've talked about this in the past, where we're creating LLC for each project because of the tax credits. The Housing Authority will be leasing the land to the LLC. The Housing Authority will be participating as the property manager for the projects once they're complete. CRHA does have a role in helping to secure financing for the projects, not least of which is the low-income housing tax credits themselves. So again, nothing new in here, but it just kind of brings it all under one resolution, really.
Okay. And these have been circulated for a while. I think they were just being run through the lawyer, as you said.
That's correct, yeah. And our lawyers have approved these and feel like they accurately sort of capture what the commitments are by the Housing Authority.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 1406? Questions, comments before that, or?
I move to approve Resolution 1406, authorizing the participation of Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority in the renovation and development of the Crescent Hall Apartments.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, abstain. And Resolution 1407, anyone like to make a motion for that one?
Move approval of Resolution 1407, authorizing the participation of Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority in the development of the South First Street Apartments, Phase 1.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, great. Both resolutions pass. And the last resolution we have, which I'm looking for here, is to appoint Kathleen Glenn Matthews as interim executive director. This came to a head, especially HUD came for a meeting. It's been probably 2 weeks ago, or the begin. Yeah. And they, in terms of signing on documents, having one go-to person, they were still very uneasy with our 3-person leadership strategy. Also, I think moving forward, she has been in charge of many of our HUD documentation, corrective action plans. They also suggested that she have more oversight over the housing director and the housing voucher program in terms of some of the changes needing to be made and how those processes were run. So in speaking with her, and she agreed to be the interim executive director until we are able to hire a new executive director. So that, any questions about that? This resolution states that she, our 3-person leadership team, Dave Norris, Claudette Green, and Kathleen Glenn Matthews, are all to receive a 10% bonus for the months that they've been working together in that collaborative leadership team. And then Kathleen Glenn Matthews will receive a 25% bonus on her monthly salary from February 1st until we hire a new executive director, so that she can oversee the various corrective action plans, policy updates, kind of the nuts and bolts of what's going on, and our communication with HUD. Do I have a motion to approve?
Do you want to explain a little bit more about the 25%, just in case?
That it sounds high, or? No.
I mean, I don't really, maybe I don't understand either. I wasn't thinking that would be your point. Just
No, so we had this discussion, but
Yeah.
in case there was any questions
Oh, right.
about, yeah.
If there's any questions about salary changes, leadership changes.
I think she's been doing a tremendous amount of work, and I think the quality of the work that I have reason to scrutinize has been excellent. So I think she's working more than 25% harder than she used to. So I think it's a modest proposal, and I would move approval.
And that's what the discussion
Yeah.
surrounding that was that's because of where her salary was to where a person in this position would
Yeah.
be is why it's the 25%.
Yeah, 10% was not enough to
Yeah.
cover that gap.
Okay.
So I move to approve Resolution 1408, appointing Kathleen Glenn Matthews as interim executive director.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And just, there is a little typo in here we're going to fix in the final version. It has her listed as the relation coordinator 3
Oh.
different times, and she's technically the relocation coordinator, so.
Right, not the relationship coordinator. Well, could be both. Okay, great. Is anyone here to do the safety security update? Usually we have someone from Millennium that gives us an update. Okay, if not, we'll hear from the safety committee later. And if they come in, we can fold them in. Is there someone here to talk about the update on the 10th and Page Park construction? Aha.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello.
For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Erin Attack and I'm the city's grants coordinator. Today I'm here to give an update on the 10th and Page neighborhood passive park construction located on the corner of Hardy Drive and 8th Street Northwest. So a little bit on the history for those who are not too familiar on the project. From 2014 to 2018, the 10th and Page neighborhood park, or 10th and Page neighborhood actually, received annual CDBG funds. These are Community Development Block Grant funds by HUD annually to assist with neighborhood improvements. The 10th and Page Task Force created priorities for spending the neighborhood grant funds in the 10th and Page neighborhood. The goal was to improve the city lot owned across the street from the West Haven Community Center. This goal sprung from the residents who expressed that the subject site was actually an eyesore to begin with, and that the area was not well maintained. There was a lot of trash on the site. And the residents also expressed that as an entryway to the neighborhood, they would like to see some sort of beautification project on the subject site itself. And we found that out through the West Haven Community Day survey that was conducted and through the online neighborhood 10th and Page survey that was conducted. From there, we have the 10th and Page Task Force, which was composed of West Haven residents, one representative from the Planning Commission, one 10th and Page business owner, and 10th and Page residents, totaling 8 people. There were some underlying site conditions that limited what type of project could be placed on the subject site itself. So there was some stormwater drainage issues, underground utilities issues, box culvert carrying Shanks Branch located underneath the site, and so on and so forth. Taking that into consideration, we had numerous community engagement events to make sure all community partners and citizens in the 10th and Page neighborhood and citizens in that area had a say with what type of project should be placed on the subject site. And I'll list some of the community engagement events we had. So we had the 10th and Page Task Force meetings, which were all public. We had the City of Promise stakeholder meeting, the CRHA board meetings, neighborhood meetings in 10th and Page, the West Haven neighborhood survey, community day with West Haven, the meeting with JABA to discuss the design aspects of the aging population in 10th and Page, the West Haven Coalition meeting, the meeting with FAR, the Parks and Recs meeting, who had an impact with how the subject site would be kept, and then the CRHA open house with West Haven residents and more. There were some common goals that emerged with the community engagement events. So the goal of preserving an open, green, and multi-generational space, the creation of a gateway to the neighborhood, so again, the emphasis on beautification, the creation of a community gathering space, the goal of public safety and crime prevention through lighting improvement and sidewalk safety. The incorporation of vegetation, the incorporation of infrastructure for low maintenance and durability. So this was where Parks and Rec had major impact with the subject site itself. And then moving forward, the city placed the subject site out for bid on the 10th and Page Passive Park. And we got one bidder, Best Excavating. We did sign into contract with them. The contract itself was a little over $300,000. You may have noticed we did put up a safety fence last Friday on the subject site, so construction has started. There will be some major infrastructure work within the next few months, so that's to address the stormwater issues and the utility concerns on the subject site itself. Again, we're building a passive park, so this is like nice greenery, beautification of the neighborhood park that the residents wanted. We will expect to see substantial completion in September, and we'll expect to see final completion around December this year. And I've been working with Ms. Glenn Matthews to give West Haven residents an update coming soon. We're still working on a schedule, and I'd be happy to keep coming back every now and then to give updates on the project itself. But I'm here to answer any questions you guys may have.
Okay. It sounds like, Joy, do you have something you'd like to say?
Yes, I do.
Since we have a West Haven resident
Okay.
who,
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Fine, thank you. So there was some discrepancy in your report, or I know you weren't here at the time, but so I was the person who they asked to be on that task force, and because of my work at the time I was working, even I wasn't able to attend any of those meetings. At the time it was CRHA. I asked her to try to find somebody else or to reach out to the West Haven community a little bit differently, instead of just holding my name as a placeholder to say that's who they were meeting with. There was a meeting with FAR, and we shared our concerns about what we thought needed to happen in the community to get more feedback, aside from the West Haven Community Day, because that was like trying to get some feedback. Tierra did a ice cream social, because the 802 and 806, we felt that it was more essential for you to have a really deep conversation with them, because they're much closer to that park. They did an ice cream social. I think Brandon was the only person who showed up. No residents showed up. It was all kids, and that night I have to work. So for me, the feedback and the population that we needed to be targeted was not targeted. I even talked to Alex Sifuni to basically said, you all need to reconsider putting a park right there at the corner, because 802 and 806 have a lot of traffic and a lot of things that goes on in the back of that building, and that a park right across from a community center would not be suffice. And when you talk about the 10th and Page neighborhood, West Haven most of the time is not even considered, even though it's in that neighborhood, there is not a lot of outreach that gets done to the West Haven community. So I attended a couple of CBDG meetings because I was on that task force also, and I gave my feedback about the things that I would like to see happen in that corner, which would be like traffic calming, doing something with that railroad vegetation that is just making our entrance to our property ugly. None of that was included in any of the thing. The only thing that they seemed to focus on was that park. So yes, I disagree with some of your synopsis of all of what happened. I'm not going to say some things didn't happen, but the true outreach to the community was not done there was a meeting between CRHA and FAR, and Mr. Collins can come up and say what he have to say about that. We voiced these same concerns to her in those meetings. So I don't agree with what is being presented here because one, I basically said I am, being that I had to work at night, that you need to find another person, and those meetings are predominantly dominated by the 10th and Page neighborhood. It's not always, there's no outreach that gets done to pull now. Help me here, City of Promise. It happens in the City of Promise, the meetings happen in their house, but a lot of times it's not the residents from West Haven who attend those meetings. Just for the record, since they're putting this on their record, I want my comments reflected that I totally does not disagree. I mean, I don't agree with what's being presented here. Last thing I will say, there are a lot of children in our neighborhood who is not being watched past 5 o'clock, whether the community center is open and not open, and that's a blind side. And I swear to you, it's gonna be on somebody's head if one child in West Haven come up missing. One.
Thank you, Joy. And I'm sorry, you're reporting what you've been given, it sounds like, from a previous
Yes, so I'm following
person
the
on the
city's
project.
minutes that we're taking at all the community engagement events. And I'd be more than happy to send this all to Ms. Glenn Matthews.
Great. And since this is an update and it sounds like construction is starting, maybe the thing to do would be to update to reflect the comments about who was included in some of the discussions.
Yeah,
and while
definitely.
there's still time to make any adjustments,
Yeah.
It sounds like things are in progress, but they're early in progress. So reaching out and going over the plan and seeing if there are things that are able to be adjusted would be great at this point. Because it sounds like it's probably ready to happen. I don't know. Do you all have other thoughts on this?
Well, I know Ms. Glenn Matthews and I have a weekly meeting with the city manager. In our last weekly meeting, he did discuss a couple of ways that the plan could be modified to address some of the concerns, particularly with traffic coming down under the bridge and maybe extending that guardrail to make sure that it's a safer area for people to congregate, for children to play. That was just one example. But
Okay. Do you did you have other updates on your report, or is that?
That was all I had. If there's
Okay.
something in specific you're looking for, I can definitely.
No, I just wasn't aware of the most recent conversation. So it sounds like the city manager is already being discussed and maybe needs to go back to a group at West Haven to consider some of these changes.
I definitely think more dialogue with West Haven residents needs to happen.
Yeah.
So.
And there are some sidewalk improvements happening with this park as well.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we have committee reports, Resident Service Committee report. Let's see, can I grab it? We have Safety Committee report meeting. We don't have a written Resident Service Committee it was canceled? Oh, well then we will move on to the Maintenance Committee report. Mr. Osteen or Mr. Pavlovich, would you like to come forward?
I saw he had a report.
Yeah,
I
so
didn't-
you
I don't
come
want
on
to
up.
steal any of his thunder, so you
Yeah.
start off.
So, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
From both my reports, from my report and the maintenance committee, you will see some similarities because my first month of work with Charlotte Area Development Housing Authority was concentrated on lots of inspections and to evaluate physical conditions of our facilities. And in this report about with the maintenance committee meeting, we concentrated our conversation on some problems with work orders that residents have a problem to approach front desk to ask for maintenance requests, probably because some damages are made because they didn't call front desk appropriately as soon as something happened, especially water leaks. After talking with some of the residents, we realized that some of them are scared even to come to the front desk because they need that they will be fined, with if some kind of damage is made. But that's why we thought that we decided that maintenance articles in the newsletter should be posted and to explain residents that maintenance repairs are belonging to maintenance and that they should call it as soon as possible if something happens in their residences. They don't need to try to fix it on their own because we think that every repair should be done by maintenance department. Also, we talked about future project at South First Street, and moving our maintenance shop has to be moved very soon. That's why we felt that board should have a workshop to decide as soon as possible where we will move, because all that moving all the stuff and will take some time. But with hiring of a few more technicians, I think our job will be much easier, and I will talk about that later on. I had a very good meeting with Mr. Schlutzhauer from HUD. He is their engineer. We talked about REACT scoring, how he can help me in our endeavor to raise our REACT scores. Especially we talked about projects in vacant apartments, because we have few vacant apartments there. Very long on a waiting, very long on vacancy. So his input helped me a lot, and especially after my training in last week in Atlanta regarding REACT scoring. I think that will help us a lot in the future. Also, I talked on our maintenance committee meeting that every morning I have a meeting with maintenance department. The reason is to raise productivity and accountability. Every morning we are talking about work orders and what is your agenda for that day. That's why I'm always, they keep me in a loop what's going on in that particular day. So another thing that we talked about is on-call system. I think that is still in a process. We didn't finish that. Me and Ms. Green are working on letter that will to send our emergency call company who they will differentiate what is emergency, what is not emergency. What I realized when I talked to maintenance guys is that they are getting a tremendous amount of calls that are not emergency calls. And when somebody wakes you up 10 times a night, in the morning, you are not ready to do your best as a maintenance guy. That's why we decided as a management team to go through our monitoring company who will differentiate and separate the emergency calls from regular calls, who will later on be put in a YARD system and be done that next day. Also, I'm happy to inform that YARD and work orders in a YARD is done, totally cleaned. I think today when I did pull our report, we had 8 outstanding work orders, and probably half of those will be done today. It means that we went down pretty nicely. And I think that is all from our maintenance committee meeting. So if you have any questions, please, I will try to answer your questions.
Should we have him go ahead and just jump into his facilities director's
that makes
report while
sense.
he's up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can go.
as I mentioned, my 4 weeks of employment, my first 4 weeks, were concentrated on plan and goals to raise REAC inspection scores. Lots of meetings with management colleagues, maintenance team, HUD representatives, and my observation of observation of facility help us out to, on the end, management team and I created some goals and plans for, especially designed for facility maintenance department. First of all, and priority for me, it was to increase staff capacity, and I'm pleased to inform you that today I have one maintenance guy started with us, and next Monday another maintenance technician starting. That will help us with our productivity. Along with that, these meetings in the morning help a lot because we meet each day. If they have any problems, they are coming to me and present their problems. In a case that they were not able to finish work order, we know the reason why it's not done, and we are, proceeding with the action that we should. That helps everybody. I'm still working on assessment of all vacancies and scope of works for contractors bidding. I think I'll be done this week. On the end of this week, I'll have all evaluations done, and we will be able, finally to put that for contractors bidding, put it out there. Probably I will talk to Kathleen and maybe you. I will need Dave, your input on some of the things, how to do the best bidding possible. I want to bring as much contracts as I can for bidding. As I mentioned, YARD is working pretty well for us, especially for me because I was familiar with YARD in the past. It can show me also what the maintenance technicians need if they don't have enough knowledge. In some areas, it shows me where is that, how I can help them, and what kind of trainings we need for them. We are in a process of hiring temporary seasonal staff to help us with REAC inspection. Today, I also talked to our HD director, and we decided to hire four seasonal employees who I think, because we after I walked through the properties, in front of us is lots of work, especially outside. And we all know that outside, we are losing the most points outside. In Aspire, everything will change, but for now, we are in the next 2 years, we will stay with REACT. I'm in close relationship talking to Joyce with Section 3 hands-on trainings. I think they will start, the last thing that I heard is they should start on March 2nd. I will prepare some tools that are available to me to borrow to them. I will designate some of the apartments that they can be trained, and I'm looking forward to that to see how it will work, because this is something new for me. Well, I mentioned also REACT inspection trainings. Tomorrow I have my first presentation of REACT to my maintenance guys, and we will go from there. Just want to inform them what I learned in Georgia, and to present them and explain to them the differences between an Aspire and REACT inspection. That's it, what I have. If you have any questions, please, I'll try to answer.
It's a lot.
I think that was a very good presentation. I want to tell everybody, I think things are looking infinitely better with Brano on the team, so we're really happy to have him aboard, certainly. I did have one other thing that I would add. You know, we heard the residents loud and clear that you know, maintenance was their top priority, and I think the idea of, you know, fixing broke things is very, very important to us, and that will be a major effort from the board. You know, the major effort is really turning vacant units, so another real priority that falls on Brano. And I would just point out, at the maintenance meeting, we were kind of presented a list of 23 items that were developed by Kathleen in meeting with HUD, and kind of their priorities for maintenance. So there's so much beyond just fixing broke things. It's hard to juggle everybody's priority, but I think Brano is doing a really good job with that. I did have two questions for you. I know this will probably be a hiring of the contractors for the 10 units that you're looking to put on the street. This might be the first time that you have had HUD's procurement regulations kind of burdening you. Are you comfortable with what you know about that process and who you know in our organization to see that procurement is done correctly?
That's why I will reach for help.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that you're up to that and we're responding.
Just a quick note that and we want to publicly thank the City of Charlottesville and Miss Kelly in the back row there she's offered their support with the procurement process for this particular bid. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
So can we, the board, or I would personally like to see a copy of what some of the things that HUD are requiring us to
Yeah,
get up to.
absolutely. I've got just my marked up copy is all I have at the moment, but I will make sure that you get that.
Can you email me that, or just give me a copy of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the one other thing I wanted to talk about, I see you have an assessment of all the vacant units in Crescent Hall and make them ready as soon as possible. That being closely coordinated with redevelopment, so we are, you know, the idea that we're hustling to renovate a unit to move somebody into it for a month before we move them upstairs or something seems, I mean, are we making prudent decisions in that
Yeah,
process?
These are particularly targeted to residents who are currently on the 8th floor, which is
Uh-huh.
the first floor that we'll be renovating.
Right.
So Mr. Popovich and his team are making sure
Crescent
all the
Hall
residents on the 8th floor have
list.
units to move into that are in decent shape,
Great.
so that we can get started.
Okay, great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I can add, we had the meeting on February 12th regarding vacant units at Crescent Hall, and we designated first 10 apartments that will be done until 2nd of March. I think it's pretty good goal, and I think we are on top of that. 2 maintenance guys are all the time
Okay.
at Crescent Hall.
Great, thank you.
Wait, before you go, could I have one more question about the on-call discussion? So is someone actually answering the emergency calls I wasn't quite clear on who,
We are not done with that. That
Right.
process is not done.
yeah,
We are still on an old system. Maintenance guys are answering
right.
calls.
But I mean,
We are very careful with that transition, and
Yeah.
what we decided not to change phone number for residents will nothing change.
Okay.
Only that phone number that they call will go to our agency, who will divert those calls to the maintenance guys. Depends of is it emergency call or not.
who would be the agency that, I guess who's making those decisions? I know you don't have it all worked out,
Who makes decision on what?
on what's an
On-
emergency.
On
Like what
emergency.
human
We
being?
already, in the past, this is nothing, it's nothing new.
Okay.
In the past, they had the same system, then they transferred with the past CEO, on a new system, they tried this, and now we've seen that it doesn't work. We will try old system. I think it will work better for all of us.
Just a Section 3 job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's a Section 3 for
that's true.
the
Section,
housing authority.
a Section 3 job. Okay, so maybe we'll hear more about it as it gets
Yeah,
developed. Okay.
thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you. Okay, we have two other reports, and awkwardly, both of those directors aren't here this evening, so, trying to think how to best handle that. Both Ms. Green and Ms. Glenn Matthews are,
I have a question when you think of that. There was a
Yeah.
reference to Miss Green is no longer,
no, different thing.
oh, okay, thank you. Keep me straight.
Thank you, because I also had that question. I was like, wait a minute, I didn't. Okay, so back to the it was back in regards to the safety committee. That's Miss Charlene Green. Because she
Oh,
is
right,
moving
right,
to
yeah.
Piedmont Housing
Yep, yep.
Alliance
Okay.
for her new position, will not be chairing that committee anymore, not Miss Green, our Director of Housing. I was also confused by that.
Well, both Miss Green.
Yes.
We'll miss that Miss Green.
Two Miss Greens going on. So, do you all want to wade through their reports? Or, I know we still have to go, we need to open our CCDC meeting, and get through some business there.
I'm happy if anybody has questions I'm happy to try and answer them. I can't guarantee I'll be able to, but I can give it my best shot. I will say with regard to the CSRAT program, because that's in Ms. Green's report, just an update there. As you know, we currently don't receive funding from the city to administer that program. We've been informed by HUD that we cannot use federal resources, HUD resources, to administer a city program. So we've had some very positive conversations with the city manager and some other city officials about potentially getting some funding. They may end up just redirecting some of the program funding, but that's to be determined. But at least to help cover some of the administrative costs that we incur in making sure that that program is a success. And it has been a big success, and we just want to make sure that continues.
I'm just looking through to see if there's anything anything we should highlight. I don't want to just move on, but they're also not here to really discuss this, so. So bear with us for a couple minutes just to make sure we don't miss bringing anything forward while they're not here. I do know there was I think numerous trainings that have gone on the past month. And maybe most recently last week, a group that went to Glen Allen, I believe starting to train for the LITEC.
That was a rent reasonableness
Oh,
training.
rent reasonable
But
training,
there was
thank you.
also a LITEC, low-income housing tax credit training. Ms. Glenn Matthews has been identifying a number of ways in which we can bolster the capacity of this organization, both on the staff level and on the board level. And HUD is very interested in seeing us do the same. So.
So I do have one question. I'm looking at the vacancy report. And so vacancies are relatively low with the, and in Crescent Halls, I know that there are vacancies set aside because of redevelopment. But I'm wondering what's going on with the 15 vacancies at West Haven?
Yeah, I can't speak to West Haven specifically. I don't know, Mr. Popovich, if you can address that, or.
I'll try to answer those questions. I think last week we had a meeting, me and Ms. Green. We decided to finish 5 apartments until March 2nd and 5 apartments until March 16. It means 10 apartments will be done until middle of March. Rest of it will be probably, we will leave for bidding, for contractors bidding, because they are in a need and a big remodel.
Major renovations. Okay.
Yes.
So 10 will be
10 will be
finished
done
and 5
until
are
mid-
going into the bid.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
So I have a question on the vouchers. I know we had a large number of vouchers that we needed to get out on the street and lease that. Can you talk about where we are? Or can anybody talk about where we are with that?
As of last week, so HUD has directed us to lease up another 91 vouchers using some of the reserve funds that we have in the Housing Choice Voucher Program. As of last week, Ms. Green said they had 56 of those out on the street, meaning 56 families had been approved for vouchers. Now, some of them are having a hard time finding homes to rent with the vouchers, which we know is a longstanding challenge, but I know she's working to get additional vouchers out on the street as well. So. And I will, just for, since it's sort of
Yeah.
related, just a quick report that there is legislation before the Virginia General Assembly right now that would outlaw discrimination against voucher holders based on, or against renters based on source of income. This is something we've been pushing for many years. Housing advocates have been pushing for because it puts our residents and low-income people generally at a real disadvantage in many ways. And so that bill has passed the House of Delegates, and it has passed a committee in the Virginia State Senate as of last week, and hopefully will be approved and signed by the governors.
That's awesome. All right. Other questions? We have both the interim director's report and the housing report. And we may need to have them, much like we did actually last month, do an interim report, or maybe at our work session, we can iron out other questions that we need them to answer in person. So let me know if you all are okay moving ahead, or if you want to look over it
I'm good.
a little longer.
Go ahead.
Move ahead? Okay, okay. All right, so we'll move ahead. We're gonna have another set of public comments based on anything that's come up. And then after that, we will adjourn and move on to the CCDC portion of the meeting, which is, generally has to do with redevelopment, property development, anything to do with that. So any other public comments?
Good evening, my name is Annette Wilcox. I'm at 1400 Monticello Road at apartment 102 in Charlottesville, Virginia. If I have any concerns about that Lewis Park apartment building for elderly people at 62 years of age with disabled who don't need with medical assisted supervision and look at that, how soon I hope to be able to move where there's plenty of stores for me to shop to. Yes, yeah. After having been living at Monticello Road, but I still convenient. I'll try to remember to check with David Norris and ask Leslie Dean for that phone number.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Brandon Collins from FAR, the Resident Council Resident Advisory Board. I want to go straight for discrimination on source of income. It is very exciting that the General Assembly is considering that. Whatever you got to do to make that happen. I think it's going to, there are two things that came up tonight that I think this deeply touches. One is the VEAP program. So I think that would eliminate a giant concern beyond that 5-year time period that a landlord would have to benefit from that program. I don't know how that might come into thinking on renegotiating that MOU, or whether you want to wait and see if the General Assembly's got something to do with it or what, but something to consider. The other is much more scary. Ms. Johnson from the FAR staff pointed out to me 56 vouchers hitting the street all at once is a disaster. I mean, it's great that 56 families have this opportunity, but imagine, so South First Street has 58 units there. That's like emptying that site onto the street. Like, that's the exact kind of thing we're trying to avoid with redevelopment and relocation. So I don't know what can be done to reduce or to assist these families finding housing. I just don't see anybody, whether they have a voucher or not, finding 56 homes all at once within the time period that HUD allows you. So, if there's a way to find some wiggle room on that to get these folks housed in Charlottesville or whatever it's got to take, I don't know. I almost feel like maybe a relocation coordinator might need to look into this just to lend a hand in a housing search. But that's a lot of people, a lot of families on looking for a voucher that the time passes, you can't find something, you lose that voucher, and these people have been waiting a long time for these. So I hope that's something you can look into. Did want to point out the 10th and Page issue with the proposed park. As far as meeting with Ms. Howard on this in the past, have been really just kind of brief and sort of sold to us as it's basically a done deal. And I hope that maybe we can find a way to bring some folks together to really talk about this and get something figured out. From our perspective, it's never really been great resident engagement, and we don't feel like we were really approached in the appropriate fashion as the resident council for residents of public housing. So something to maybe revisit, and another one of those things that maybe might take a little more time to figure out, but I think that would be okay. Thanks.
Ms. Recker, if I can just clarify, I fully agree with Mr. Collins' point and Ms. Johnson's point about that's a lot of vouchers to put out. We were not given any leeway whatsoever. We were ordered by HUD to issue those vouchers ASAP. However, I think it's a great idea to provide more assistance for those who are searching for housing, to see if we can help them get the housing they're looking for. So.
Great, definitely. I'm not exactly sure where to find all of that assistance, but we'll try. Okay. Thank you. And there's a reminder of our next meeting dates at the bottom that we read through at the beginning. And I believe we need a motion to adjourn, and then we can start up our next meeting.
I move to adjourn this regular meeting of the Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority, Monday, February 25th, 2020 at 6 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, we'll take a 5-minute break and reconvene for the CCDC meeting.
funny, some people, it's incredible, people won't even touch it.
I didn't know.
I would have 4 or 5, I'd be a lot of time, I'd take them to my office.
Don't tell me we have to
Okay.
get up and go back there. I said, don't tell me we have to get up and go back there.
All right, excuse me. I think we are ready to move on. Maybe. I'd like to call to order the monthly board meeting for the Charlottesville Community Development Corporation. Roll call of commissioners, please.
Chair Redker,
Here.
Vice Chair Oliver,
Here.
Commissioner Goblat. Here. Commissioner Osteen.
Here.
Commissioner Slaughter, Commissioner Talbert, Mayor Walker.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. And a brief moment of silence before we begin. All right, we have the approval of minutes, and I have to say, do we have, oh yeah, we do have the January 9th, okay. So we have 3 different meeting worth of minutes to approve.
Do we really have 3 meeting minutes to approve?
Yeah. The January 9th was one resolution about a signature at a work session.
Okay.
So it's really 2 full meetings.
Can we do it all at the same time?
Well, we could separate them out because I would only vote on one of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whenever anyone's ready, we need a motion for the December 11th.
I'll move to approve the minutes from December 11th, 2019.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Um,
Opposed, sorry, and abstaining. Because Ms. Walker wasn't a commissioner at that time.
I also move to approve the minutes of January 27th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right. The minutes, motion passed. So now we'll have Dave Norris present the redevelopment report.
Do you have to do
this
the
on
ninth?
the 11th.
What?
We still have to do
Oh, I'm sorry, the January 9th minutes. I'm sorry. Jump back. The very brief minutes for January 9th.
I move to approve the minutes of the special meeting of the Board of Commissioners on January 9th, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I'm gonna
Or abstain?
from
Yep.
those.
All right, now we'll move on to the redevelopment report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just wanted to update everyone on 4 items in particular before we move on with the rest of our meeting. First of all, we're very pleased to report that City Council last week, and I want to give a big thanks to Mayor Walker for her leadership on this, unanimously approved up to $3 million in city funds for our South First Street Phase 2 project, which is going to be submitted this March for a low-income housing tax credit application. So those city funds really play a huge role in helping to leverage other funds, hopefully to include those low-income housing tax credits. So we want to give thanks to Mayor Walker and City Council for that commitment. It's huge bolstering of our project. Secondly, fiscal sustainability study. We've been talking about this for a long time. We're very pleased to report that in working with Jeff Meyer, Virginia Community Development Corporation, that we have finally completed the first draft of an optimal build-out scenario, actually 2 different scenarios, and now we're about to add a third. Sort of projects what the total unit numbers, unit mix, and phasing plan might look like for the entire course of our redevelopment effort. So we've been focusing largely to date on Crescent Halls and South First Street, but we have several other sites, and this analysis is helping us to think about the trade-offs when it comes to how many units would we look to build at each site, what mix of units, what order do we redevelop the rest of our properties. This is still in early draft form. The bottom line is that we have to make sure that CRHA comes out in with a much improved bottom line, financial bottom line, and of course that we improve living conditions for our residents and help contribute to the city's affordable housing gap. And we're confident that at the end of the day, we will be able to accomplish all those goals simultaneously. So the next step is to refine those projections based on the input received last week from our redevelopment committee, and then sit down with FAR, sit down with some of our other key stakeholders to continue to refine those numbers and those projections, and then we'll add some narrative and some financial analysis and hopefully be able to present it to the board in the very near future. Third, I'm sorry that Commissioner Talbert's not here because she asked for an update on transit access. We've had a few different conversations with city officials and city staff about ways to improve transit access for our residents via the redevelopment process. I know the mayor's been involved in a couple of those conversations. We've discussed with the city manager some ways that we can improve transit access. I know this is an issue that's near and dear to our residents, including residents who are currently pretty severely inconvenienced by the lack of transit access. And so we really hope to see some both short-term and long-term access improvements as a result of these conversations. One of the very first requests that the residents have made is that the city look into reinstating a bus stop on South First Street that had been in place for many years but recently was taken away, which the absence of that bus stop really not only inconveniences residents but actually puts residents at risk, at physical risk, because now they're having to cross a very busy street to get to a bus stop, which isn't a very safe bus stop in and of itself. And so, we, in conversations with city officials, I know they're already looking at the potential for reinstating that particular stop. That's just one improvement that we'd like to see the city undertake. So we're going to continue to push transit access as we move forward. And then lastly, we've talked a lot about how redevelopment isn't just investing in our buildings and our neighborhoods, it's also investing in our people. And so you'll be hearing a little bit later an update on our Section 3 initiative, resident jobs and job training and business development. That's part of a broader approach we're taking to promoting financial opportunity for our residents. One of the programs that we have visited in Richmond, it's called the Financial Opportunity Center, and LISC, the Local Initiative Support Corporation, which is the organization that helps to get these financial opportunity centers off the ground. It's basically a one-stop shop for financial stability services and supports. LISC is looking to issue a request for proposals for Charlottesville to have its very first financial opportunity center, which would be huge. They're reportedly looking for a collaborative application so that different organizations in the community can come together to host and manage a financial opportunity center for the benefit of our residents. So stay tuned for more information on that. We're expecting that RFP to come out as soon as the spring, and we're pretty excited about the potential for that kind of an initiative. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. There's a lot more redevelopment related on our agenda. This is just sort of some other items that were outstanding. So.
Right. For the Financial Opportunity Center, are other partners already being discussed?
So we had the first sort of
for this collaborative.
We had a first meeting last week with just some potential, just to kind of feel out who might be interested. And so Housing Authority was there, Legal Aid was there, the Piedmont Housing Alliance, MACA, I think Habitat was there, I think Jeanette was there, a variety of partners that United Way, just people that provide financial stability supports in one form or another, to see which ones might want to join together in answering this RFP. And I think out of that's going to emerge a collaborative proposal, the details of which are still somewhat far away, but we're working on it.
Great. Other questions? All right, thank you. All right, we're moving on to, we're going to turn it over to Habitat for Humanity. We have a proposal for a homeownership partnership between CRHA and Habitat on Madison Avenue. And I guess we'll just let you take it away. Let me move out of the way. Some of us have been to some meetings about this. I think maybe Ms. Walker is new to the board, so she doesn't have all the information yet.
Yeah. Good evening. My name's Mandy Burbage. I'm the Land Development Coordinator for Habitat. And I just have a brief presentation to orient you to the property in question, which is the subject of the term sheet, which I believe was in the agenda packet for tonight. So you all are familiar with the Madison Avenue site. This is the full site. It's about 3.5 acres. The strip of land that we're here to talk about tonight is this little orange piece that's at the intersection of Meadow Street and Madison Avenue. It's about 1/10 of an acre. And it is adjacent to another property that's currently owned by Piedmont Housing Alliance, but Piedmont Housing Alliance is interested in selling it to Habitat to build affordable housing. This is just an aerial view of the property. It's undeveloped, both the CRHA strip of land and the PHA parcel. There's currently a drainage ditch on the eastern edge of the CRHA property that goes into a storm pipe that then goes underneath Madison Avenue. You can see here that the PHA parcel and the CRHA parcel both have R2 zoning, which allows either single-family attached or single-family detached housing. The PHA property by itself could accommodate one duplex, but that duplex would have to front on Meadow Street, which is currently not accepted by the city of Charlottesville. And so the upgrades that would be required to the street to make that property buildable are cost prohibitive for Habitat. So that's what initiated our approaching CRHA about getting that additional strip of land. You can see the arrangement that would be that would happen if we were just to develop the PHA parcel, and then the development that would be enabled by the addition of that strip of land. So you can see it doubles the amount of affordable units that we could build. It also takes advantage of the existing improved Madison Avenue, so the development cost is significantly lower per lot than it would be if we were only to develop the Meadow Street parcel. And one of the exciting things in the term sheet is that if CRHA were to sell the strip of land to Habitat, we would enter into a partnership that would enable two current residents of Madison Avenue to become owners of those lots. And then the other 2 lots would be developed for families in our homeownership pipeline. An additional benefit that CRHA would see as a result of this partnership would be an improvement to the stormwater infrastructure that would benefit the future redevelopment of the CRHA property. That purple line at the bottom is the stormwater infrastructure, and you can kind of see the drainage ditch that feeds into it. If Habitat were to develop these 4 lots, we would end up extending that stormwater pipe which would then stub up to CRHA's property. And so that would be an improvement that CRHA would make eventually when it redevelops the Madison Avenue site. So that, the cost of that we estimate to be about $20,000. So that would be a value that that Habitat would be investing in that property. This is just an example of some of the different types of single-family attached housing that we've built in the community in various locations. Some of these are in Belmont, some of these are in Laughlin, one of these is in Cleveland Avenue, so this is just sort of a variety of types of housing that we've built over the years. And just to speak to the resident engagement piece, we've been in discussion about this property acquisition for about 1.5 years. We initially presented to CRHA and they asked that we reach out to FAR. So we met with FAR and they asked us to have a resident meeting. We held a meeting in January of 2019, and then over the course of last year, our staff member, Mr. Larry Scott, went and door knocked about once a week for the entire year, getting to know residents and helping familiarize them with our program and about this potential opportunity with the sale of land on Madison Avenue. And so we came back to this board in November and discussed having an additional meeting with residents at Madison Avenue. And so we had a meeting in January of this year and had 3 residents of Madison Avenue come to that meeting in addition to representatives from this board and FAR. And then as a result, we had 3 residents apply to our program with our last round of applications. And so I believe, expect to have 1 more from Madison Avenue, 1 more application come in specific to this special partnership. There is 1 resident here tonight from Madison Avenue who is an applicant, and I believe she wishes to make a few comments, if that is okay with this board.
Good evening. My name is Gwendolyn Allen, resident of public housing. I currently live on Madison Avenue. I was raised up in the Fifield neighborhood and Rose Hill Drive neighborhood. As a young kid, then I began to grow up and I had my own children. So I fought against some issues with just personal issues in life where I needed space to raise my children. So I applied at CRHA and was accepted. I'll never forget Michelle Robinson. She said, she gave me the key to my apartment on Madison Avenue. I've been living over there for approximately 17 years. And I live right in front of the play area. And it was sort of like culture shock to me when I moved there, just because I was awoke one morning to the sound of a basketball being bounced, just boom. The child was having fun. So I couldn't knock it. So children are out there to engage and learn and develop. So it was a part of living in the little village, I call it. As time went on, I began to slowly not even think about home ownership until Larry, Mr. Scott here, one day was in our neighborhood passing out flyers and encouraging us to say, you can dream big, you can own your own home. And half of the neighborhood shut the door on it, but I opened the door and listened to Larry. I was just in a good space and time to listen to him, and what he had to say, it touched my heart. It just shocked me. I was floored to say, wow, what about me owning my own home someday? Well, I filled out the application process, and lo and behold, that went well. I was called in to the Habitat office to review my application and to get all the paperwork that's needed to get things processed. And today, I'm a dreamer. There is a potential of owning your own home. And I'm grateful for the Habitat. I'm grateful because not only with Habitat, they have programs within the program that you can actually clean up your credit history, build your credit history, And the people there are just so really nice. They're out willing to help you. They'll call you to say, are you doing okay? This is what's needed. Can you come talk to me? And I was just absolutely touched that we have Habitat in our community. There are beautiful houses that Habitat has built all around Charlottesville and outlying counties. And I see those houses. So today I think I'm gonna dream big and keep my hopes up to home ownership. I just want to thank Habitat, and I really want to thank Mr. Scott for getting the word out there to let us know that although we don't want to dream big at times, but there is the potential, just try it. So that's where I'm at today. I'm really trying to be a homeowner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have the term sheet in your packet. I'm here tonight, but I'm also joined by Dan and Jeanette and Mr. Scott. If you all have any questions specifically about anything in the term sheet or about anything that I've just presented, but that's basically the content.
So I'm wondering about the, under what CRHA is agreeing to, this first item, contribute $10,000 in direct grant assistance to residents from the Madison Avenue Public Housing Community who apply for and qualify for Habitat's Home Buyer Program. So I see that underneath you say what the funds will be used to, but I'm wondering if this is standard, if, like is this something that CRHA typically does when people apply for Habitat's Home Ownership Program, or is this a special for this partnership?
This is unique to this partnership, and I think it was seen as instead of just paying Habitat purchasing the land, that money would actually assist Madison Avenue residents on their path to home ownership.
Okay.
So it's sort of like the sale price, but it's doing something more.
So is it just those two families who could potentially be in the new homes on Madison Avenue, or is it?
It was discussed as any Madison Avenue resident that is accepted into the program, that it would be divided equally among them. So there are 2 spots for Madison residents at Madison Avenue, but if all 4 of those applicants were to be accepted, then that $10,000 would be shared by all of them, and then the money would, for the 2 that weren't actually going to be living at Madison Avenue, they could use it on their path wherever else they end up living. So it would be dependent on the number of families that are accepted from Madison Avenue. Does that answer your question?
I think we had discussions about why the 2 and not all 4 could be for Madison Avenue residents, and that had to do with I think in Habitat's waiting lists, or you can speak to it, but it's hard to time when people will come up ready for the housing, so they said 2 that they could do this special partnership where it's reserved only for Madison Avenue residents, and then the other 2 it would go to their normal list, and that hopefully it would be a public housing resident, but we can't really say because, they have to go in order of their list. So we had tried to get all 4. We're back to 2, but with the idea that we could use the money coming in to help 4 different residents move into Habitat homes. All 4 may not end up on Madison Avenue, if that makes sense. Is that what you all were?
Right, yeah. So right now we have about 40 families in our program awaiting housing, and so we have a long line of families and need housing for them, and have not enough sites to build on. And so that was the idea of housing 2 of the 4 at Madison. But yes, we wanted this $10,000 to help any Madison Avenue resident that wanted to apply for and was accepted into our program.
You just said you had 40 on the list. Is that 40 on a total list, or is that 40 from CRHA?
I believe it's 40 total, and then I think
60% are either living in public housing or they have a voucher.
Okay, so just some questions that I have. So the partnership with PHA, have they, because this is my first time hearing this,
Yes.
so has PHA gifted the land, or however that process is gonna work? Or-
No, we have it under contract to purchase. So Habitat would buy it from PHA. And we've just been holding off on acquiring it because if we can't get the strip, then we can't afford to build on just that lot. And so it would likely just remain with PHA. But
what's
if
the size difference between the PHA lot and this?
the PHA lot is about 11,000 square feet. Oh yeah, I can go back. And that by right would support one duplex. And so two homes could be built on that land, but it requires about $50,000 worth of road improvements alone, and so that drives up the development cost. And that's why Habitat wouldn't be able to undertake it without the strip.
I have one question about that. So will you be, with 4 lots, you'd be doing the same road improvements, or would you not be
No.
improving it because it's
We
not
wouldn't
frontage?
have to because we could take advantage of the improved
Other
frontage
frontage,
along
yeah.
an accepted city street. So that's,
Right.
I don't know who is on the hook to improve that road. I think it's been like that for a long time. I don't know if it's the developer to the right. But for whatever reason, that street is in really rough shape,
Right.
and it hasn't been turned over to the city yet. Isn't
You
it?
don't want to drive up that road.
No, you don't.
You will ruin your springs in your car, your balance will go off.
I have one question for Dave. Have we pursued the idea of demo dispo? Do we know if there's going to be hurdles there for us, or?
It actually will require a demo dispo application. What we've been told is that Habitat's willing to help and do a lot of the legwork in terms of the environmental review process, a lot of the data collection. But yes, it will require demo dispo, just as with any property we sell or lease.
Yeah, but we don't foresee any special challenges or anything? Just
No, in fact, the gentleman from the HUD national office was at one of our recent redevelopment committee meetings, and he specifically said these kinds of partnerships with Habitat are not unique. It's a fairly common kind of partnership that housing authorities enter into, and so he didn't think it'd be a big challenge for HUD.
Okay, thank you.
So 2 questions in terms of, since we just received the possible build out, how would this potentially impact the shift there? Has that been thought about? And then I know that in one of the redevelopment committee meetings, the cost was potentially higher. So how did you all arrive at the $10,000?
So I can answer the first question, which is we do not envision us ever developing this little 0.1 of an acre parcel, just because it's not really developable in and of itself. So it doesn't really impact our, potential development plans for the site in terms of the build out. Now with the price, I think maybe what you're referring to was an assessment that the city assessor provided, which came in higher than the 10,000, but the assessor didn't take into account site conditions and some other things. So
What was that amount?
I think it was 20,000, if I remember correctly, or
19
or
was the assessment, but that was just of that size parcel somewhere in the city. They didn't take into consideration the $20,000 pipe.
Right.
Has to be replaced.
So there are site conditions that didn't get factored in. So.
And when would development begin?
So we would, if we were to acquire the strip, we'd have to go through the demo dispo process, which you would estimate to take
6 to 8 months, maybe.
6 to 8 months. And then we would go through a plan approval process with the city, which could take another 6 to 10 months. So
some of that can happen simultaneously. It doesn't-
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, that's true. We could enter into the entitlement process once we had a contract. And then in that time frame, the families that are accepted into the program, that's also the amount of time that they can be working through the program, working on credit and building up down payment. And so, I don't know, a year and a half potentially before we are able to begin construction.
And in terms of since 60% of the waiting list is either housing or vouchers, while you can't, or for whatever reason, guarantee more than 2 current Madison Avenue families, what was the discussion around just public housing or voucher families?
Getting the other 2. Are we? I'm not sure what we're allowed to do with fair housing laws.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a couple of issues. One is that we do have a lot of families that have been waiting, and so this thing called a special partnership is sometimes we do it when it actually is a partnership with another organization or a church group or something like that. So essentially it enables us to have people kind of jump the line and say, if you apply, you're applying for these homes, and rather than just applying to the general program. The other thing is that it's hard to, because this is home ownership and people select it, we can't guarantee that people in the general program who just applied for the general program would choose these lots. So if we were to guarantee that it would be someone from public housing, we can't guarantee that because we can't force somebody to take this. The likelihood, 6 in 10 chances, is that it would be somebody from public housing or off of a voucher.
So I have 2 questions. First of all, I want to know why is Madison Avenue proposal being presented under the CCDC? Have no connections at all. And secondly, I want to know, why don't we consider buying that piece of property? Why don't the Housing Authority consider buying that piece of property and adding it on to Madison Avenue? We can have that when we go there and have more property to work with our residents over there. So, those are the things that we need to be discussing as far as Madison Avenue.
I can address the first part of that question. I think the second one's more for the board to discuss, but just to clarify, tonight we're not asking for the board to approve any contract. We're trying to get some direction from the board if they're willing to have the authority enter into contract negotiations, and then any contract would have to come back before the board for a final approval before anything happens. We just typically consider redevelopment-oriented items under the CCDC agenda, but you're absolutely right. When it comes to actually approving any contract, that would have to be a CRHA board decision. The second issue is really a philosophical one about,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question that we can talk about, especially a redevelopment. It does seem like in some of the recent what were you calling the sustainability or the build out study, Madison Avenue isn't higher. It's not one of the properties that is in most need compared to some of the other sites. So I don't know if that changes our thinking on this. It's not that it won't be happening in the near future, so to speak, because we do have West Haven, which will take some years to work through and redevelop, and some other sites. So that seems like one of the issues here is that if this was to happen, it would give people the opportunity for home ownership sooner than we can get there and redevelop realistically in our timeline. I mean, that's all I'm thinking about it is, but you're totally right. We could go the other way and buy it and try to add to our portfolio. I'm just thinking timeline-wise, it would probably get people in homes faster through this deal.
I think we talked about having this discussion with the board before, and that never happened. I think that we're still in a position where we don't know which way we want to go with that. I would like for us to have that discussion about this piece of land before we move any further with any parts of this.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Oliver. I think that there's a lot of questions that we have, and I think I can see on the one hand, if you've got a 60-person waiting list for home ownership, that's a lot of people waiting to buy homes, but I know that we also have an extremely long waiting list for public housing, so there's also like a real need for that as well. And I'm not sure which is best, like how to best serve the housing community. That's something I would want to talk about more in thinking about, like, not just what's the speediest thing to do, but also what's going to be the best benefit to the community long term.
I just really think it's a great program that, we got a piece of land that we can't ever really do anything with, could be a liability. I do think the point, we had some drastic new thinking among a lot of the players here when the sustainability report was put forward last week. But again, if we're talking about 600 new units, this little corner is not going to impact the scale of the plan that we were talking about. The idea that potentially 4 homeowners could be identified in a year, we're just talking about one more project at the end of a 8 or 10-year plan that, I think we had scheduled 55 home ownership goals in our long-term fiscal sustainability plan. I would be willing to put these 4 on our list and say we accomplished some of those, and I would like to move forward as expeditiously as possible, making this land available to our residents for home ownership and habitat for development.
I think we talked about buying additional land when we can. I think this is the perfect opportunity for us to buy that piece of land.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be, buying the land will be obviously a longer discussion, which we can have. I do think, it does seem that we don't have right now a home ownership track within our organization, even though we hope to someday. So it does seem like trying a kind of pilot partnership with Habitat, who does it really well. I do like the financial advising, that someone would become in the program and be able to get help and assistance in order to buy the home, that we can't give right now. Our hands are totally full with, what we're trying to do. So I'm for it, for that reason. I think it would benefit some of our residents. It also kind of gives us a buffer, I have to say, there's some pretty nice new development down.
We could do that too. Why would you take that opportunity away from us to do that?
Well, I guess that what I'm saying, I would not want to take that opportunity away. It just seems like this is a more sustainable option right now. But I'm, you guys we can discuss it more now, or we can discuss it more later. But it does seem like I think we need to come to some agreement in the next, pretty soon, because they're waiting to see if they should purchase this land. So if we do need to talk about it more, we need a timeline.
Why didn't they offer to sell the land to us? Why would they sell the land to somebody else?
Because we're not organized in that way. We're not out looking for land to buy. These guys have a program.
There's no reason why we couldn't be.
We could be, but I think we're doing all we can do. We're trying to maintain units that we can't maintain.
We're trying to do a whole lot of stuff that we can't maintain.
I know, so why put up more on our shoulders right now?
I don't see us putting more on our shoulder. I see an opportunity for us when we move there. Yeah. When we move there to redevelop, I see an opportunity for us. Yeah, I know.
I don't know
There ain't
how
gonna
we
be
have.
no tiny place, there ain't gonna be no tiny houses or nothing like that, but, you know, we could do something with
Well, I think we need to make a decision one way or the other. I think, you know, I don't like us spinning our wheels. I don't like Habitat spinning their wheels. I really don't like getting residents excited about this possibility and then us not allowing that to happen.
Well, what about getting them excited about it and they still don't happen for them? It's still not gonna happen for them, so that's okay.
No, I think we're
It
giving,
sounds like
we're
to
doing
me that
everything
it's
we
okay.
can to
Well,
give
it's a
them the
board
best
decision. We
opportunity.
can make it a board decision, but we need to have another discussion about that before we move any
Well,
further.
we've said that 4 meetings in a row then.
Oh, well, if we have 4 more, that's fine.
Well, I mean, you know,
So what is
you
the position?
effectively win by just stalemating this thing, but
Whatever.
I would, you know,
You did what you needed to do to win what you wanted to do with Levy, so you know what?
So the other two commissioners what is their position?
don't really know. Letitia just moved into a Habitat house. I would like to think we could predict what she would do.
So now you want to predict what somebody else would do. I would like to hear her opinion about it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I
the
don't,
other-
I don't know that Ms. Slaughter has spoken on this.
I haven't heard, but I think the other option is you could direct staff to flesh out both options and start these discussions with Habitat and flesh out the option Ms. Oliver is suggesting and come back to the board and present them both to the board and let
Well, I
the
don't
board.
think that would really be possible because PHA wouldn't have a discussion, I don't think, with CRHA about the possibility of selling something they've already had discussions with Habitat about.
That's a good point, yeah.
So that's probably out the door for that one. I don't think that would be could be the foundation for how the decision is made here. Because I don't see them, switching gears unless it just didn't happen here and that was something that came up in the future. I don't see that they would make a decision, that we could make the decision based on that.
Yeah. So, all right, hold on. Let's just pause here. So the options are, we can take a feel for the commissioners that are here. I hate to delay and do a whole new presentation, but we could delay and get the feel of the other two commissioners to vote on it.
I think at the very least, it seems like an important enough decision that to have 2 people missing that's a lot of people not here to get a chance to weigh in, and it does seem to me to not be a small decision, given especially the amount of discussion that we've had.
True, we could move it to a I don't know that it needs to wait a month, maybe it goes to a work session. Is this an official vote, or we're just getting a feeling, Dave?
We're not asking for a vote on any contract tonight. We're trying to get a sense of the board. Is there a
Okay.
direction to pursue this a contract negotiation based on these terms? And then we would bring the contract back. This envisions that happening within 6 months. We will have a different Housing Authority board in 6 months, so that's also another complicating factor.
Yeah.
But we're not asking for a decision tonight in terms of an actual
Yeah.
contractual agreement. So.
I have a question, for the board. Are there things within the agreement, it's hard to ever be 100% happy with, when we're compromising between 2 parties, but are there things that are specific to this that we could work on with Habitat or talk with them about, just in terms of what we have, without, let's say if we didn't go back and just say no and think about what we could do with that land ourselves, are there things within this that are points of discussion that we could have?
So my hesitation would be whether the 2 current Madison Avenue families and then 2 other public housing or voucher families could be the families. And then these, I would probably have more questions around the $10,000 decision for sell price. And we're essentially then donating that money to Habitat for a program they already run for
We're
people.
donating it to our residents.
Well, no.
We are subsidizing our residents. to
So
move into the
if
program.
the other 60% of residents that walked into Habitat, we didn't donate on their behalf. There's a process already in place for how, once you go in and do the application process, that CRHA doesn't, or other entities have to donate on behalf of that person. So because this is different from that, that would be my concern. There's already established process in place, and why don't those families benefit from that process? Why does this contribution have to be made in that way?
Well, I think this, I don't understand this totally, but I mean, as I understand, there's a rigorous program that Habitat has, and they can't really make guarantees because of the process itself. They don't know how all those little things are going to play out. So I think the concept is, if we could help, one of the things that has to be determined is, they have to, the residents have to have, some financial resources to make this happen on their end too.
Okay,
and
so-
so this is underwriting that a little bit to try to make that easier.
Is that the plan, that this money would go into the money that they would save?
Yeah, these are direct grants to the families, it's not to Habitat. So we have a program called the Pathways Program, so we intentionally go out to try to find people who have high debt issues and very low income. And we have partnered in specific cases on a very limited basis, because there's not a lot of money out there, with United Way to do this direct grant program for people at the really low end of the economic spectrum. And it just gives them, you come up with this family plan, and if it's like they decide together sort of what they want to accomplish, and if they want to accomplish that, then they can pull down money, which helps them sort of do the next step. It's a sort of family self-sufficiency type program, but we don't do that for the general Habitat population. It just takes a little bit longer. I think the idea was, this was an idea that was proposed when we proposed a purchase price. It was proposed by the board back to us, that let's take that purchase price money and actually reinvest it in the families so that they can move through the process faster.
So this money would be used for them to, the money they would save towards the down payment or debt payoff, 100% of the funding would go to that?
Yeah, it could be debt payment, it could be debt payoff, it could be the reservation is only half towards the net down payment, because the idea among the group when we talked about it was that part of that saving your own money to have some skin in the game, there's something that's really valuable about that. But it's like, if your issue with getting a better job is transportation, you could use it to get a better car so you can get a better job, but it's all part of the family plan. But a lot of it is debt repayment. That's really the thing that really hinders our families in working through the program really quickly, is that they're just mired in debt. But it's their choice, and it's based on one-on-one interaction and a family plan that we work on together. But that's a kind of special thing we do when we have grant funding. It's not the normal thing that we do.
And what's the average debt that your family comes in with?
Jeanette can speak.
I wouldn't say that, I mean, we have, folks, and I will say to Madison residents' credit, they actually have relatively low levels of debt, comparatively speaking to folks that we serve through our pipeline. But we have someone in our pipeline that has $150,000 of debt. You have someone with $10,000. You have someone with $2,000. So it really kind of varies. So I don't think an average would give you a good picture of it. So. But yeah, so that $10,000 would be used, and it's a total direct grant to families. None of it goes to Habitat for administrative fees or anything like that.
I think part of it was when I first heard about the potential partnership, there wasn't a payment to CRHA for the plan. It was just the partnership. So the thinking was to ask Habitat, to actually pay us for the land, but then we could use it. We were trying to think of a way to use it to ensure that people on Madison Avenue would benefit from this, because it is tied to that Madison Avenue parcel.
And that's just why I was going with, with that question, because if there was a potentially higher assessment or conversation around dollars, then if families needed more money, then why was the sale price half? So that's,
yeah. That's a good question. We could. That's a good, that's a point of negotiation. That's a good question. Any other thoughts or idea, or just concerns with what's, this specific partnership on what we have before us?
I just think it needs to be resolved, so I would propose that we have it on the CRHA agenda at our next monthly meeting and vote on it at that time. Could we agree to that?
I would agree to that. Okay. Okay, so we'll agree to that, and Ms. Oliver will try to think more broadly about the bigger ideas.
I agree moving it to next month's agenda, but if we're not ready to approve it, no.
Right. And in the meantime, I don't know if we need to do the whole presentation or have the two members, we'll figure out how to get them this information.
I think that would be important to make sure that.
Yeah, so you all don't have to, well, actually, this is recorded. Maybe that's when they can see the presentation. I just don't want you to have to come and do it all again.
But there are going to probably be questions, and we run into that with some of the CRHA staff not being present, and then the delays between the questions and not be able to ask them. So it's probably best if there's going to be a vote to plan to be able to answer all the questions the next meeting.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Okay, Ms. Johnston, would you like to come up and talk about the Section 3 updates?
Hi, good evening. The job posting is out for the Section 3 Trades Academy, and that deadline for the application is March the 2nd. So part of my job was to be able to coordinate all of the resources to make Section 3 possible. And so there are a lot of policies and there's a lot of policies and procedures. There's a lot of employment law things that needs to be put together, was putting the bindings together. But then when we met with Cornelius Griggs, he basically was saying that he needed about 8 to 10 people. So a lot of that binder stuff was put on halt, just so that I can focus on how we can get, find more bodies to be able to be in the training program. He wanted 8. So I really set a goal of trying to find at least 16 people. The other thing was that we did a pilot program with our residents on the job through CRHA, with our 5 residents, and one of the things that the city helped us to provide, and one of the things that I clearly understand from that experience is that people didn't have the kind of wraparound support around them that was needed. So since there was a program already established in the city called Network to Work, Dave and myself and Karen Waters-Wicks, we met with Mr. Schuyler. And to talk about how we cannot recreate, I know, mind flight, how we can not recreate a program, but how we partner with a program. And so we met, talked about what are some of the things we were expecting, and they sent a memorandum of understanding between CRHA and PVCC, which I think is in your package. Yeah. And I'll go over that a little bit. I would just browse through it just for the public to know what we're talking about. So and we did an assessment form. At least, I have at least 29 people. Today, some more assessment came in because the word is getting out and people are doing the assessment and taking the application and going to be able to bring them back. So out of the 29, 5 is Crescent Hall's residents, which we realize that they will not be right at the top of the list to be doing that construction work, especially with what the requirements are saying. You have to be able to lift 50 pounds, you have to be able to stand on your feet. So, but they're still going to be enrolled into the Network to Work because the people gave me some things that they would like to see doing. Like some people are saying, I can't do the construction, but maybe there's a cleaning, or maybe there's transportation, or maybe there's something. So I notated that, and it's going to notate that into the Network to Work program. Out of that, we have 15 public housing residents and 5 Section 8, and that's what has came in so far. So out of the 25 people, there's 25 people, 5 of them, an additional 5 is Crescent Halls. And like I said, I just got some more assessment in. 1 application was returned in today. There was a couple of people who are calling to say that they're gonna drop it off. Now, I have not checked in with Holly Lee, and I've not checked in with Holly Lee to see how many she may have. Frank, we met with Frank this morning to set up a employer thing into the Network to Work, and he said that he had a couple of people who was going to apply for it, and I have not checked with anyone from the job center yet just to see how that is flowing. I know it has been on Facebook, so the word has been out there. I know that the city, and I think FAR also today, I'm assuming it was FAR, who passed out some flyers on Madison Avenue today. I'm not sure, I just saw it, so I don't know if it was a city who did it. But the word is getting out. Did you all pass any flyers out at Madison Avenue? No? So I guess it's the city, this Holly Lee people are passing out the flyers. So, so that's the assessment form. It's not the application form. This is just the assessment form that was trying to see what people were interested in and all, and so I'm still updating that in the database. Now, as far as the memorandum of understanding, there is a purpose about it, which, talk about what the 2 parties are agreeing to, and then on number 2 is the duration of the MOU, what the goals are, what the responsibilities for PVCC is, and what the responsibility for CRHA is, according to the Section 3 program. And it speaks about the authorities, and it also has a non-discrimination statement in there, and amendments to the MOU, which the MOU constitutes the entire agreement of the parties supervising any prior written or oral agreement between them on the same subject matter. Amendment of this MOU must be in writing and signed by the duly authorized representative of each party. And then there's the assignment. So there is 8 parts to this MOU, and it is in your package for consideration to, because I think it has to come from, this has to be a blessing of the CRHA board, since there is a memorandum of understanding.
And I would just note that even though we did not have a quorum of voting members of the redevelopment committee last week, the committee members who were there, other participants in that meeting unanimously agreed that the board should consider approving this MOU.
So I have a question actually not about the MOU, but about the eligibility for the Section 3 program. So this is like, I love this flyer, but I did get stuck on this bullet point about the fact that to be eligible you have to pass drug screenings. Is that a federal regulation, or is that something?
That's a regulation of our general contract.
Of Cornelius Griggs?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's not open to negotiation?
I mean, we could try it. I mean, we asked him point blank if that was something he required, and he said yes, but we could, yeah.
Okay, I mean, it's not obviously, I'm glad that this is moving forward, and I've been really excited about the Section 3. I think maybe if we're looking for people to partner with in the future, I mean, I don't have to take a drug test to keep my job, so I don't know that other people should have to.
That's a good point.
Sure, we will talk to him about that. Thank you. Any other questions?
We had that discussion the other day.
Yeah.
So I feel the same.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Jar.
Do we have a
does it have to
motion?
be a?
Oh, do we need to?
Oh, we need a motion on the
Yeah.
MOU. I didn't know if it had to go back to the CRHA
Yeah.
side of things.
And the dates?
Yeah, their dates aren't in there. So where it says duration, what is the duration of it? How long does this last? It just says date
It
and
just
date.
says date and date.
Oh. I think we could just
Amend.
arbitrarily put, 1 year from the date of commencement, and then,
And does it need to be in place while people are starting the program?
no, people have already started.
Yeah, I mean,
So
should
it's
we?
really just to kind of put it in writing what the roles and responsibilities are of each. We're already doing the work, honestly.
Yeah.
But
I mean, yeah, I'd be in favor if we said if it could start today and terminate on January 23rd, 2020. Or 2021, sorry.
2021.
But if it's already started, it would need to be.
Do we have to backdate it?
I mean. I
So
think
this
it's fine to
January
just-
23rd was for last,
Well, we just
It's just when you wrote it.
things today.
Yeah, you can make it effective today. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah. And then 1 year from today, have it.
okay, so let's say, whatever this is, the 24th.
24th.
February 24th, 2020 to February 24th, 2021.
But whoever mentioned, I don't know if it was Ms. Goldblatt, you are correct. This is technically a CRHA matter, so you might want to reconvene CRHA briefly after this meeting just to vote on that. I don't know.
Okay.
I know it's a little awkward, but just.
We can do that. Quickly. Okay, relocation update.
Hello. I would like to start with something that's actually not on here, and that's to echo Mr. Collins' comment about preparing for LIHTC. It wasn't until a couple of weeks ago that I understood that the entire Crescent Halls building, all 105 units, will be LIHTC. Yeah, that's right. And I guess that's kind of why I'm bringing it up, because I actually heard you mention something that was what I thought was half public housing, half LIHTC. But the whole building, all 105 units will be LIHTC, and then within that, around half will be voucher and half will be public housing. So once, I guess, we all settle in with that, Ms. Glenn Matthews talked about planning some information sessions to share that update with residents, so that everyone knows they will need to, I don't know if I say certify or recertify, how that works, but to help kind of with that shift in thinking, excuse me, and to share that update with assurance that they will have our support along the way. So I just wanted to say that.
So,
yeah.
So they're all going to be tax credit units because we're entering into this new phase with using tax credits that we're getting. But the half that are still public housing, does that mean that it's still public housing?
Mm-hmm.
But that they're going to have to do new paperwork?
That's
or
correct.
that's what I understand it.
That's correct.
It to be okay.
And 105 units, if we had 105 residents there today, 105 of them would be able to come back. And so, and our goal is to make their new tenant experience as seamless as possible, whether or not their unit happens to be subsidized by a public housing subsidy or a project-based voucher subsidy. So.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. So LIHTC, but yet we still are operating under that assumption, or under the understanding that it's half public housing, half voucher. Just making sure.
And that relocation can provide assistance in getting folks ready, having documentation. If you need a new ID, whatever, we can support, so that when the time comes, everybody feels prepared.
So what happens to the vacant units under this scenario?
What happens to them? You mean currently vacant or just in the future?
Just in the future.
So the units it'll continue to function very much like it does now. As units become available, residents who are on the waiting list, regardless of whether a unit is project-based voucher unit or a public housing unit, whoever is next on the waiting list will get that unit.
Okay.
Again, the goal is to make it completely seamless to the resident. Now, back office wise, there is going to be paperwork, and we're training our staff right now in those procedures, looking at other communities that have done this. But it should, the goal is for it to operate just as it does now from the resident's perspective. So.
Okay, so as far as the relocation plan draft goes, number 1 on here, that's not something I've worked on, but would be glad to if asked. Notices, 30-day notices have been received by 10 of our 11 8th floor residents. The gentleman, we have someone in a nursing home, but we're working on that. But 10 of the 11 understand that moves may begin as early as mid-March. The paperwork, the letter talks about March 30th as the beginning of that move period. Did that make sense, what I just said? Okay. 90-day notices have gone out to all but 3 7th floor residents. As far as vacant units go, as you heard from Brano, maintenance is really, really working hard to get 11 units prepared as temporary homes by March 28th. We are excited to be hiring a moving company residents have been great making themselves available to help with that decision-making process. We're having a meeting on Friday to review the 3 moving companies who made it through the RFP process and to decide which one of those we'll contract with for the moves. So once we have the temporary homes ready and movers, the moving can happen, and we'll do that with the help of this relocation assessment team. As I said here, January and February meetings didn't happen because the standing meeting time fell on a holiday, but we'll be meeting in 3 weeks. And at that point, I think we'll be close enough to where we can be asking for specific types of help. We'll know more then, and can really make the most of everyone's talents and the resources that they can connect residents to. I guess I'll just keep going here with number 6. I was able to attend one of the planning meetings over at South First Street, and it was really, I hope everyone has a chance to do that at some point because it's really something to see. And I'm sorry I haven't been there since June because it's really good stuff. How many times have I cleared my throat? Sorry.
Do you want?
No, it's half of it's just nerves. Sorry. So yeah, and then as far as my preparedness goes, I was able to connect a little bit with our regional relocation coordinator, just to kind of have a dialogue there so that I'm not relying on Ms. Glenn Matthews for every single little thing. She had reached out to him back in the fall, but about him coming and doing a training, but that he didn't follow up. But at least he's still out there and available if we need him, sort of available if we need him. But he has been good with answering questions. Mr. Norris suggested that I visit other housing authorities that are also doing redevelopment, which is a really good idea. So I can sort of just have better sense for the flow of things. And then I also need to spend time in our rental office to better understand the process there. But generally, I think the feeling in the building, if I had to sort of make a generalization, folks are looking forward to this, sort of dreading the physical move, but excited. People want to know, when, and they want to know. Actually, Mr. Norris provided the latest construction schedule from GMA, and that's been really nice to share with residents, just to kind of point to, and it's just a nice visual, and to be able to provide that date with understanding that it may change. Everybody's excited to see the mock-up model when that's ready. And I think that's it. Yeah, do you all have questions for me? No?
Sounds like great work.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for public comment. Does anyone want to weigh in on any of the CCDC information? All right. Are you sure? Okay. So I need a motion to adjourn the CCDC, and then we'll quickly open CRHA to approve the MOU with the Network to Work MOU.
I move to adjourn the Charlottesville Community Development Corporation regular meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right. We're adjourned. Do I have? For the CCDC meeting, and now we'd like to open the CRHA meeting. Do we need to do a roll call or just? I don't know. We just open it. Okay. Let's open it. Our only business is to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Network to Work at PVCC and the CRHA, amending it to say that the MOU shall commence on February 24th, 2020, and shall terminate on February 24th, 2021, in which time it could be extended.
So I move to approve the MOU with the amendments.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, the memorandum of understanding passes.
I just want to publicly thank and commend Ms. Johnson for her leadership in getting that MOU together, so it's
Yay!
Thank you.
a good thing for our residents, for our communities.
Yeah, thank you. And now I need a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the CRHA regular board meeting.
Second. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
We need to collect your binders.
Adjourned.
If you want to keep the materials inside, you can, but we need the actual binders back.
Should we, you'll take these, but can I let them know that they're at the CRHA office?
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
Ms. Slaughter and Ms. Talbert? So we'll keep theirs intact. Good night, thank you for coming.